So day 35 of Through the Bible in 1 year. In today's Bible study video, we're going to be covering Leviticus chapter 11, Leviticus chapter 12 and Leviticus chapter 13. So let's jump straight into today's Bible study video. Leviticus chapter 11 and verse 1 reads, And the Lord spake unto Moses and to Aaron, saying unto them, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, These the beasts which ye shall eat among all the beasts that are on the earth. Whosoever parteth the hoof and is cloven-footed, cheweth the cud among the beasts that ye shall eat. Nevertheless, these shall ye not eat of them that chew the cud, or of them that divide the hoof. The camel, because he cheweth the cud but divideth not the hoof, he unclean unto you. And the coney, because he cheweth the cud but divideth not the hoof, he unclean unto you. And the hare, because he cheweth the cud but divideth not the hoof, he unclean unto you. And the swine, though he divide the hoof and be cloven-footed, yet he cheweth not the cud, he unclean to you. Of their flesh shall you not eat, and their carcass shall you not touch, they unclean to you. These shall you eat of all that in the waters, whatsoever have fins and scales in the waters, in the seas and in the rivers, them shall ye eat. And all that have not fins and scales in the seas and in the rivers, of all that move in the waters, and of any living thing which in the waters, they are an abomination unto you. They shall be even an abomination unto you. Ye shall not eat of their flesh, but ye shall have their carcasses in abomination. Whatsoever hath no fins nor scales in the waters, that an abomination unto you. And these ye shall have in abomination among the fowls. They shall not be eaten, they are an abomination. The eagle and the ossifrage and the osprey, and the vulture and the kite after his kind, every raven after his kind, and the owl and the nighthawk and the cuckoo and the hawk after his kind, and the little owl and the cormorant and the great owl and the swan and the pelican and the gier eagle, and the stork, the heron after her kind, and the lapwing and the bat. All fowls that creep going upon four, an abomination unto you. Yet these may ye eat of every flying creeping thing that goeth upon four, which have legs above their feet to leap withal upon the earth. These of them ye may eat, the locust after his kind, and the bald locust after his kind, and the beetle after his kind, and the grasshopper after his kind. But all flying creeping things which have 4 feet, an abomination unto you, and for these ye shall be unclean. Whosoever toucheth the carcass of them shall be unclean until the even, and whosoever beareth of the carcass of them shall wash his clothes, and be unclean until the even. Of every beast which divideth the hoof, and not cloven-footed, nor cheweth the cud, unclean unto you. Every one that toucheth them shall be unclean, and whosoever goeth upon his paws among all manner of beasts that go on 4, those unclean unto you. Whoso toucheth their carcass shall be unclean until the even, and he that beareth the carcass of them shall wash his clothes, and be unclean until the even. They unclean unto you. So the Lord's literally just running through sets of animals which he's saying now are clean or unclean. Okay, now this isn't something new. If you just go back to Genesis 6, 7, 8, 9, Noah and the flood, what did the Lord say? He said, take 2 unclean and 7 clean. Okay, so just think about it, male and female. Okay, so that kind of alludes to the fact that God's talking about 2 pairs and 7 pairs. Okay, so it would be 4 unclean, 4 in total unclean animal of the unclean animal, 14 in total of the clean animal. So this isn't anything new. This is something that Scripture had obviously set up and played in already. You just have to realize the subtleties in the text. Why did the Lord say this? I have no idea. Okay, could it be because continuing with the theme that we'd actually seen in the previous video of being set apart? Maybe. Okay, I can see that. But at the same time, it could be that the animals the Lord's telling us not to consume could be detrimental to our health in some shape or form. Okay, so we have no idea why the Lord's implemented and inserted this in at this time. Okay, 29. These also unclean unto you among the creeping things that creep upon the earth, the weasel and the mouse and the tortoise after his kind, and the ferret and the chameleon and the lizard and the snail and the mole. These unclean to you among all that creep. Whosoever doth touch them when they be dead shall be unclean until the even. And upon whatsoever of them when they are dead doth fall, it shall be unclean. Whether any vessel of wood or raiment or skin or sack, whatsoever vessel wherein work is done, it must be put into water, and it shall be unclean until the even, so it shall be cleansed. Excuse me. And every earthen vessel whereinto of them falleth, whatsoever in it shall be unclean, and he shall break it. Of all meat which may be eaten, on which water cometh, shall be unclean, and all drink that may be drunk in every vessel shall be unclean, and every whereupon of their carcass falleth shall be unclean. Oven or ranges or for pots, they shall be broken down. They are unclean, and shall be unclean unto you. Nevertheless, a fountain or pit, plenty of water shall be clean, but that which toucheth their carcass shall be unclean. Okay, so the Lord's now highlighting conditions, okay, within the whole structure of what he's setting up. Okay, verse 37, and if of their carcass fall upon any sowing seed which is to be sown, it clean. But if water be put upon the seed, and of their carcass fall thereon, it unclean unto you. And if any beast of which ye may eat die, he that toucheth the carcass thereof shall be unclean until the even. And he that eateth of the carcass of it shall wash his clothes, and be unclean until the even. He also that beareth the carcass of it shall wash his clothes, and be unclean until the even. And every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, an abomination, it shall not be eaten. Whatsoever goeth upon the belly, and whatsoever goeth upon four, or whatsoever hath more feet among all creeping things that creep upon the earth, them ye shall not eat, for they an abomination. Ye shall not make yourselves abominable with any creeping thing that creepeth, neither shall ye make yourselves unclean with them, that ye should be defiled thereby. For I, the Lord your God, ye shall therefore sanctify yourselves, and ye shall be holy, for I holy. Neither shall ye defile yourselves with any manner of creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, for I, the Lord, that bringeth you up out of the land of Egypt, to be your God. Ye shall therefore be holy, for I holy. Okay, and being holy means set apart. Okay, so it's continuing with that theme of be holy, be set apart, okay, because I'm holy and set apart. Okay, so be like me. Okay, 46, this the law of the beast, and of the fowl, and of every living creature that moveth in the waters, and of every creature that creepeth upon the earth, to make a difference between the unclean and the clean, and the beast, and between the beast that may be eaten and the beast that may not be eaten. So the Lord just literally told off here in 47 verses which animals you should eat, which animals you shouldn't eat, in from fowls of the air, creeping things on the earth, and animals that in the sea, okay, beneath. Now we get a short chapter 12. Let's just literally run through it really quickly. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if a woman have conceived seed and born a man child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, according to the days of the separation for her infirmity shall she be unclean. And in the 8th day the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. And she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying 33 days. She shall touch no hallowed thing, nor come into the sanctuary until the days of her purifying be fulfilled. But if she bear a maid child, then she shall be unclean 2 weeks, as in her separation. And she shall continue in the blood of her purifying 66 days. And when the days of her purifying are fulfilled for a son or for a daughter, she shall bring a lamb of the first year for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, unto the priest, who shall offer it before the Lord and make an atonement for her, and she shall be cleansed from the issue of her blood. This the law for her that hath born a male or a female. And if she be not able to bring a lamb, then she shall bring 2 turtles or 2 young pigeons, the one for the burnt offering and the other for a sin offering, and the priest shall make an atonement for her, and she shall be clean. And that wraps up the chapter. So the Lord in verse 11, in chapter 11, talks about setting yourself apart in what you eat and what you don't eat. The Lord quickly rules off here in a couple of verses, in 8 verses, chapter 12, which is about when a woman has a child, basically, you're unclean for a certain period of time. Then obviously the male child gets circumcised on the 8th day, and then you continue your purification, which is 33 days. Then you go to the priest basically and make your offering, and basically similar but obviously different days for a woman. And you go and do your thing basically, and it tells you if you can't bring a lamb, then you bring 2 turtle doves and 2 pigeons. Okay, and it's actually interesting because some of you might watch this if you think to yourself, why is this way? And it's interesting because I've said it time and time again over the last couple of videos, God is in instructing us to be set apart, to be different. And when you think about it from that standpoint, there are things in today's day and age that through the New Testament, Lord set up and said, look, don't do those things, okay? Be separate, be different from what the world is doing, okay? The scripture says it in one way, be in the world but not of the world, okay? There's things in this world that we shouldn't be doing, okay? It's interesting, and this is what God is basically implementing here over these chapters. Be set apart, be different, okay? There's a way I want you to do things, and there's the way the world does things. I want you to do it the way I want you to do it, okay? Let's wrap up chapter 13, the last chapter. We've got another long chapter, so let's just jump through it. Verse 1, chapter 13. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying, when a man shall have in the skin of his flesh a rising, a scab, or bright spot, and it be in the skin of his flesh the plague of leprosy, then he shall be brought unto Aaron the priest, or unto one of his sons the priest. And the priest shall look on the plague in the skin of the flesh, and the hair in the plague is turned white, and the plague in sight deeper than the skin of his flesh, it a plague of leprosy, and the priest shall look on him and pronounce him unclean. Yeah. And it's interesting because we're dealing with leprosy now. You go back to Exodus chapter 3. What did the Lord do? He said, put his hand inside his top, basically, bring it out. It was white like snow. Okay, leprosy. Put it back in and took it out, and it was normal again. Okay, not basically identifying that man is unclean, but the Lord will make him clean. Okay, let's keep going. Verse 4, if the bright spot white in the skin of his flesh, and in sight not deeper than the skin, and the hair thereof be not turned white, then the priest shall shut up the plague 7 days. And the priest shall look on him the 7th day, and behold, the plague in his sight be at a stay, the plague spread not in the skin, then the priest shall shut him up 7 days more. And the priest shall look on him again the 7th day, and behold, if the plague somewhat dark, the plague spread not in the skin, the priest shall pronounce him clean, it a scab, and he shall wash his clothes and be clean. But if the scab spread much abroad in the skin, after that he have been seen of the priest for his cleansing, he shall be seen of the priest again. Okay, and the priest see that, behold, the scab spreadeth in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean, it a leprosy. When the plague of leprosy is in a man, then he shall be brought unto the priest, and the priest shall see, and behold, the rising white in the skin, and it have turned the hair white, and quick raw flesh in the rising. Okay, so the Lord set up how to identify leprosy. Now the Lord's going into what happened if there's actually a man, or woman for that fact, is a leper. Verse 11. An old leprosy in the skin of his flesh, and the priest shall pronounce him unclean, and shall not shut him up, for he unclean. And if a leprosy break out abroad in the skin, and the leprosy cover all the skin of the plague from his head even to his foot, wheresoever the priest looketh, then the priest shall consider, and behold, the leprosy have covered all his flesh, he shall pronounce clean. The plague, it is all turned white, he clean. But when raw flesh appeareth in him, he shall be unclean. And the priest shall see the raw flesh, and pronounce him to be clean. The raw flesh unclean, it a leprosy. Or if the raw flesh turn again and be changed unto white, he shall come unto the priest. And the priest shall see him, and behold, the plague be turned into white. Then the priest shall pronounce clean. The plague he clean. The flesh also in which in the skin thereof was a boil, and is healed, and in the place of the boil there be a white rising, or a bright spot, white and somewhat reddish, and it be shewed to the priest. And if when the priest seeth it, behold it in the sight lower than the skin, and the hair thereof be turned white, the priest shall pronounce him unclean, it a plague of leprosy. Okay, broken out of the boil. But if the priest look on it, and behold no white hairs therein, and it not lower than the skin, but somewhat dark, then the priest shall shut him up 7 days. And if it spread much abroad in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean, it a plague. But if the bright spot stay in his place, spread not, it a burning boil, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. Or if there be flesh in the skin whereof a hot burning, and the quick that burneth have a white bright spot, somewhat reddish or white, then the priest shall look upon it, and behold, the hair in the bright spot be turned white, and it sight deeper than the skin, it a leprosy broken out of the burning, wherefore the priest shall pronounce him unclean, it the plague of leprosy. But if the priest look on it, and behold no white hair in the bright spot, and it no lower than the skin, but somewhat dark, then the priest shall shut him up 7 days, and the priest shall look upon him the 7th day. If it be spread much abroad in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean, it the plague of leprosy. So the Lord's just literally running through what should happen if this happens or that happens, or if these other things happen, okay, in regards to identifying leprosy and what to do in order to cleanse that person of their leprosy. Okay, 28. And if the bright spot stay in his place, spread not in the skin, but is somewhat dark, it arising of the burning, and the priest shall pronounce him clean, for it an inflammation of the burning. If a man or woman have a plague upon the head or the beard, then the priest shall see the plague, and behold, if it in sight deeper than the skin, in it a yellow thin hair, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean, it a dry skull, a leprosy upon the head or beard. And if the priest look on the plague of the skull, and behold it not in sight deeper than the skin, and no black hair in it, then the priest shall shut up the plague of the skull 7 days. And in the 7th day the priest shall look on the plague, and behold, the skull spread not, and there be in it no yellow hair, and the skull not in sight deeper than the skin. He shall be shaven, but the skull shall he not shave, and the priest shall shut up the skull 7 days more. And in the 7th day the priest shall look on the skull, and behold, the skull be not spread in the skin, nor in sight deeper than the skin. Then the priest shall pronounce him clean, and he shall wash his clothes and be clean. Okay, but if the skull spread much in the skin after his cleansing, then the priest shall look on him, and behold, if the skull be spread in the skin, the priest shall not seek for yellow hair, he unclean. But if the skull be in his sight at a stay, and there is black hair growing up therein, the skull is healed, he clean. Okay, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. If a man also or a woman have in the skin of their flesh bright spots, white bright spots, then the priest shall look, and behold, the bright spots in the skin of their flesh darkish white, it a freckled spot growth in the skin, he clean. And a man whose hair is fallen off his head, he bald, he clean. And he that hath his hair fallen off from the part of his head toward his face, he forehead bald, he clean. And it's interesting because reading through these things here, it's actually interesting, because what you might fail to realize is you'd be walking around, okay, just doing whatever you're doing day to day, and you might see these certain things, and it'd be easy to just be scared to say, oh no, that person's a leper or something like that. But at the same time, that's why the Lord's going into so much specific detail about all of this stuff. Okay, so people didn't go crazy. People weren't always looking over their shoulder. This person clean, is that person unclean, etc. Okay, because imagine a world like that where you see a little white spot on someone, or a brown spot, or red spot, etc. People will be panicking and going scared. Okay, which is obviously what I believe the Lord wanted the opposite of. Okay. 38. If a man also or a woman have in the skin of their flesh bright spots, white bright spots, then the priest shall look, and behold, the bright spots in the skin of their flesh darkish white, yet a freckled spot groweth in the skin, he clean. And the man whose hair is fallen off his head, he bald, he clean. And he that hath his hair fallen off from the part of his head toward his face, he forehead bald, he clean. And if there be in the bald head or bald forehead a white reddish sore, it a leprosy sprung up in his bald head or his bald forehead, then the priest shall look upon it, and behold, the rising of the sore white reddish in his bald head or in his bald forehead, as the leprosy appeareth in the skin of the flesh, he is a leprous man, he unclean. The priest shall pronounce him utterly unclean, his plague in his head. And the leper in whom the plague, his clothes shall be rent, okay, so his clothes shall be ripped up, and his head bare, okay, and he shall put a covering upon his upper lip, and shall cry, unclean, unclean. Okay, notice that. All the days wherein the plague in him, he shall be defiled, he unclean. He shall dwell alone without the camp, his habitation. The garment also that the plague of leprosy is in, a woolen garment or a linen garment, whether in the warp or woof of linen or of woolen, okay, whether in a skin or in anything made of skin. And if the plague be greenish or reddish in the garment or in the skin, either in the warp or in the woof or in anything of skin, it a plague of leprosy, and shall be shewed unto the priest. And the priest shall look upon the plague, and shut up the plague 7 days. And he shall look on the plague on the 7th day. If the plague be spread in the garment, either in the warp or in the woof or in the skin, in any work that is made of skin, the plague, a threatening leprosy, it unclean. He shall therefore burn that garment, whether warp or woof, in woolen or in linen, or anything of skin, wherein the plague is, for it a threatening leprosy, it shall be burnt in the fire. And if the priest shall look, and behold, the plague be not spread in the garment, either in the warp or in the woof, or in anything of skin, then the priest shall command that they wash wherein the plague, and he shall shut it up 7 days more. And the priest shall look on the plague after that it is washed, and behold, the plague have not changed its colour, and the plague be not spread, it unclean. Thou shalt burn it in the fire, it fret inward, it bear within or without. And if the priest look, and behold, the plague somewhat dark after the washing of it, then he shall rend it out of the garment, or out of the skin, or out of the warp, or out of the woof. And if it appears still in the garment, either in the warp or in the woof, or in anything of skin, it is spreading, thou shalt burn that wherein the plague with fire, and the garment either warp or woof, or whatsoever thing of skin, which thou shalt wash. If the plague be departed from them, then it shall be washed the second time, and shall be clean. This the law of the plague of leprosy in a garment of woolen or linen, either in the warp or woof, or in anything of skins, to pronounce it clean, or to pronounce it unclean. May God bless his words. And it's interesting, I'll just end today's Bible study video on this point, okay? Isn't it actually interesting that we may look over these things today as just, oh, okay, yeah, of course that's what you're supposed to do, okay? You're supposed to burn this so it doesn't spread. You're supposed to cover you pretty much your nostrils and your mouth when you're speaking, so germs and bacteria doesn't spread. But notice, this is thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, okay? Before all of this modern day technology and modern day procedures are actually in place, okay? These people, and it's actually mind-boggling actually thinking about this and saying this stuff, is this stuff. These people were thousands of years ahead of the curve. Why? They were this far ahead advanced because they had God, who is outside of time, who obviously knows the best way to conduct yourself, okay? From the standpoint that, what do you do when to avoid an epidemic? Okay, you contain the situation, you isolate the person the same way the Lord said, if they're a leper, you shut them up 7 days, or you put them outside of the camp, okay, in a private place for themselves to be the habitation.